So I have not uploaded in about 2 months. I've been spending all of my energy at work, and I want to get something out there. This isn't going to be edited. This isn't going to be made special. This is me just ranting about things that I happen to particularly like, for the simple sake that I am a lazy, procrastinating jackass that can't get things done, and I want to get something out there to prove that wrong. So, for this particular instance, what I'm going to rant about is game design. What aspect of game design? I'm going to talk about the concept of tutorialization, and tutorialization being taken the wrong way. Now, for me to do that, I need to go into specifically what tutorialization is. We need to define this. So we can define tutorialization in this instance as the process of the game developers teaching the player what they want them to do. Now, notice I don't say directly or indirectly in that particular statement. There are many ways you can do tutorialization. The most common is through the basic premise of a tutorial. So you might be familiar with this in a manual or in the opening of most video games, which is where a lot of problems are coming in. Tutorials typically act as the way you teach your player how your game's controls work and how to play the game. However, tutorialization is not just teaching your player how to play the game. This is a mistake that so many people make, and it gets on my nerves like you would not believe. Tutorialization doesn't just teach someone how to play the game, but how to think when they play the game. The best example of this I can probably give is when you are playing, say, chess. You can learn how to play chess, but that alone is not enough. It's learning how to think and approach problems when you are playing the game of chess that tutorialization comes into play. Perhaps a better example of this might be fighting games, specifically with something that is known as the super flash, the animation that you get when a character is about to execute their super. This is a form of tutorialization that you can think of as indirect tutorialization. It's an aspect that you can immediately tell something without it having to be explained to you outright. Another good example of this might be, for example, opening levels of Mega Man X, or say Super Mario games. Sequelitis has actually gone into this quite a bit when it did the Mega Man vs. Mega Man X videos. In this particular instance, indirect tutorialization acts as a way of teaching your player not just how to play the game, but how to approach problems and use their brain when playing the game in such a way that they do not have to be directly handheld in order to be guided through every single problem. Actually, I just thought of the perfect example of this. Portal. Portal is an absolutely perfect example of how you handle indirect tutorialization, because it's not just the process of solving the puzzles, but teaching your player how they should be thinking about their mechanics when solving puzzles. Every single puzzle you take on in Portal from beginning to end of the game will slowly, over time, change your approach to how you solve those puzzles, even if you decide to look up a tutorial. Because what ends up happening is, as you use your mechanics, the way you understand those mechanics and your relation to those mechanics is modified by every single experience you have with them. The first puzzle you solve, where you figure out how to pick up a block and put it on a pedestal, that in and of itself teaches you how to move things around, and that gets added to your repertoire of abilities that you have, so you have something to draw from when attempting to solve puzzles. But that alone is not enough. You have to encourage your player to not just experiment, but to make use of these resources to their fullest potential. And this ends up being something on both the player side and the developer side of a particular game. In this particular instance, a developer has to be able to not just use those mechanics, but use them in such a way that the player has an idea of to do that in the first place. And most of the time, developers will typically fall on, hey, you should do this, i.e. almost every Sonic game ever, or say Navi, where you are basically just told the solution and you just go do it rather than having to figure it out yourself. That we can think of as direct tutorialization, where you're directly instructed on how to handle a problem. That in itself is a useful tool, because believe it or not, some people have a harder time wrapping their heads around particular implements, and some things just do not come to them naturally. So direct tutorialization is equally as important as indirect tutorialization. If anything, both have to be used in tandem in order to create the best player experience, for the simple fact that one cannot function nearly as well without the other, because not everybody plays video games, and they need to have someone help them figure out how to approach the game in the first place. Otherwise, they'll just be completely lost and have no idea what the hell they are supposed to be doing. That's my thoughts on it anyway. If you have different thoughts, go ahead and let me know about that. Being completely honest, I don't get what people can't understand about tutorialization. I understand that it is an incredibly difficult thing to do to indirectly tutorialize your player, but at the same time, it does not help when you do things such as rush development or throw in a bunch of new crap without having mastered the current crap in order to make sure that the game is properly balanced out. Not just balanced out in the sense that everything functions, but balanced out in such a way that the player understands what they can do, what they can't do, and how they should use that to approach problem solving. Hello, like every Metroid game ever, where you end up having to go get new powers, and then you understand, oh, I can use this new power to go back to this previous area to unlock something else that could potentially get me a new power to unlock more areas. Or hey, how about A Link to the Past, where they use that exact same thing as a top-down Metroid, where you can go and do that with over the course of the entirety of the game, and you don't have to be blatantly explained every single thing you have to do. Yes, you have to be pointed in specific directions in order to know where the next major progress point is, but by and large, there are a million different secrets that you don't get told about that you can go find for yourself instead of having every single thing explained to you like you're 5. That is the end of my rant on this subject. I am that cheeky geek. Good night, ladies and gentlemen.